Good afternoon, everyone. It is a huge pleasure to be back for yet another TL Talk. For those that have been with us before, you know this. It's my favorite moment of the week. It is a pleasure to be back. Thank you so much for joining us. If you're a travel advisor, if you're an IC, if you own a hotel or work in a restaurant, if you're in media, thank you for joining us. It's such a pleasure to have you with us. For those of you that are new to our TL Talks, our objective since the beginning of the pandemic has been to create a channel of positive energy. We created this space to be able to unite the leaders in our industry, be them journalists, hoteliers, travel advisors, influencers, to be able to shed a little light, a little genuine insight, maybe motivate, get a little seed planted, think differently. And we've been very fortunate. We've surpassed 50,000 views, which is mind-bogglingly positive. I'm very happy with that. So if you do like these talks, please subscribe, please like them, and please share. The more people we can hit with positive energy, the better we will all be. So for those that do not know me, nice to meet you. I am Tina Lira. I am the founder of TL Portfolio, which is a PR, sales and marketing representation company with offices in 7 countries throughout South and North America. We have a fantastic team of 17 women who have helped me build the company and remain with me throughout the pandemic, which I'm very proud of. I am Brazilian. I grew up in Mexico. I studied hospitality at La Roche in Switzerland. I worked for the Hyatt in Paris. Then I moved over to New York, had a great experience with Mandarin Oriental, did the opening of the Ritz-Carlton in Battery Park. Moved to Singapore with 4 seasons, eventually to Turks and Caicos, where I started to explore the independent hotel models, eventually opened a consulting business in Miami, joined Haupert Costas Christ in Brazil, and in 2012, I launched TL Portfolio. So that's a little bit about me. Let's get to the real important people, which are these 3 very wise gentlemen that I am honored to share this conversation with. The topic of today, travel from frivolous to meaningful. I'm going to start with Richard Bailey, Chairman and CEO of Pacific Beachcombers. Richard is also the owner of the renowned The Brando property and is the visionary behind the Pacific Beachcombers brand family and its many sustainable initiatives. American by birth, Richard earned a Bachelor and a Master of Arts degree in Stanford University and an MBA in Harvard University. I have to add that because you can't leave that out. When you have this kind of name, they have to be mentioned. So sorry, I have to say that.
Don't hold it against me.
He's a pioneer in environmental protection and sustainability. In addition to his role as heading Pacific Beachcombers, he co-founded, and I'm going to do a big effort to say these names correctly, Tetiaroa Society, a nonprofit dedicated to exploring initiative solutions in the world's most pressing issues related to sustainable interdependence. And Te Mana o Te Moana. Is that good? Did I do well?
Very good.
Thank you. It's a nonprofit that strives to protect the Polynesian marine environment. He's also a fellow diver, such as myself, cyclist. He's a Harley Davidson rider, amongst many other things. Richard, thank you so much for joining us. Another recent friend that, I'm sorry, guys, I have to tell you, I'm going to hang around your lives now forever. You're going to be like, why did this pandemic get this woman in my life? So Jake Haupert, nice to meet you. And I'm so thrilled that we've been able to connect during this pandemic. Chairman and CEO of the Transformational Travel Council. Jake is dedicated to unleashing travel's transformative regenerative and interpersonal potential as never before, promoting both personal fulfillment and global, these words, man, trivability. Can you say that? Trivability. There you go. Trivability. There you go. By taking the best from 5 fields of thought: travel, diversity and equity, psychology, spirituality, and neuroscience, and making it available with rigorous and accessible to the travel industry and traveler. Jake, what you've done with TTC is renowned. You are a benchmark because you started this so early on. So thank you so much for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you.
We have another legend, Costas Christ, president of Beyond Green Travel. And this one, and I have to warn you guys, this thing could go on for a long time. I am cutting it short, but please be aware the accolades go on and on. So let's give this a try. With a dynamic career spanning decades, Costas has gained many titles: eco-tourism pioneer, sustainable tourism visionary, award-winning National Geographic travel writer, and to name a few. His life's work has helped shape the world of travel and tourism as we know it today. As a Harvard University wildlife field researcher in Kenya, when he was a college student long before the concept of ecotourism was established, Costa was struck by the inequality that he witnessed and began to imagine a different model of tourism. And I think the most beautiful thing, Costas, is that similarly to Jake, but probably a little bit earlier, you started to identify this, and you have been a pioneer in the evolvement of ecotourism, and not only since way before it even existed to now helping develop it going forward. So, your television, film, radio appearances include Travel Channel, Good Morning America, National Geographic Channel, Nat Geo Weekend, BBC, CNN, National Public Radio, and so on. So it is a huge pleasure to have you with us. I think I am, as I said before, surrounded by three very wise men, and I would love to be able to start with a little taste of how your life has been over the last few months. We've all lived very odd times. We've been in quarantine, and my passion is always looking at the silver lining. That's my addiction. I love it. And so I'd love to ask each one of you, and maybe Richard, I'll start with you. Can you share what learnings came out of these past few months of quarantine on a personal basis? Because as they say, we can learn every day. So tell us a little bit about your life over the last, 6 months.
Well, I've learned how to use video conference and digital technologies more effectively. Personally, I think everything has changed now. Not many things will go back to the way they were. And I think there's good in that, and there's bad, but we all got very comfortable with what we came to consider as normal. Now things are going to go to a different place, but I think for many people, there has come a realization that travel is a force for good. It's been widely reported, for example, that carbon dioxide levels are down in the atmosphere, so that's a good thing. But I would reject the postulate that more tourism is less environment, or more environment is less tourism. What we have seen, I would ask some of the safari operators in Africa what the pressure from illegal poaching has been during the pandemic.
Sure.
Without travel dollars to support their defense of large mammals in Africa. There are many examples here in French Polynesia that I could cite, from illegal poaching of green sea turtles to all kinds of marine species. Excuse me. So I think that what we need to do is come back to a tourism that retains the good and tries to challenge the less good and move beyond that.
Certainly, I think that's our hope and our task ahead. And Costas, tell us a little bit about your past few months. What did you extract out of it? Did any big learning come out of these past months in quarantine?
Yes, I think as probably all of your viewers, and thanks again to everybody who's turned up for this conversation. I think there have been some personal and some bigger realizations. And I would probably put first and foremost that this pandemic has taught us that there can be no personal health and well-being without planetary health and well-being. These are intricately connected. So on the grand scale of things, that's, I think, an important and big takeaway that we should use, as Richard Bailey just said, to really guide us forward in the travel industry. no personal health and well-being without planetary health and well-being. And on a more subjective level, personal level, this is the first time in 10 years that I've been able to go completely through the blueberry farming season, because I live on a organic blueberry farm on the coast of Maine. This year we harvested a little under about 6,000 kilos. And so that a little bit of a smaller harvest for us. But the important thing is that usually I would be at Virtuoso Travel Week, or like all of us on this, we'd be at some event, we'd be traveling. So actually being able to be present every single day and see the small changes in the earth around farming, and the seasons change here in Maine, and the different species coming and going, and the importance of ecology in an ecosystem, it's been an inspiration. And that's something that was special for me. As you said, and I admire it, looking for that silver lining in what is difficult times for many of us.
For sure. And I have to tell you, blueberries are my favorite. I'm in Brazil. It's very hard to come by. If you have spare, and if the borders were open, but I'm American, I can get there, I'm going to go and steal them from you because I love them. They're so healthy and they're delicious. So yes, lucky you. Definitely a silver lining there. Jake, tell us about life recently.
Yeah, happy to. Just first want to express the gratitude, for having me, and to be in this panel is an honor. Thank you. I would had similar experiences as Dick and Costas. What Costas said about like reconnecting with the rhythm of life and nature was certainly an important part of my journey. A lot of the work that I do, we do at the Transformational Travel Council is based on Joseph Campbell and the hero's journey. And there's a quote that stands out, that I think captures, what we've all been going through. And it is, "The cave we fear to enter hides the treasures we seek." And I feel like the last, with the been sort of put into the cave, and we've had to face, some challenging things. And for me, it's been, it's certainly been, some dark times, but at the same time, I'm an eternal optimist as well, and it's been really nice to reconnect with the harmony of life and my family and my kids and my work, and just reprioritize. It's been just this amazing opportunity to reprioritize and just check in with myself.
Yeah. I think, over the last few TL talks, one of the things that came up as the true luxury is time. Right? We suddenly start to appreciate time and what we do with it, and thinking about it more. And for sure, that's such a key ingredient in our lives. And when we think about time, Costas, I wanted to dive in, because I think we're living a transformative crossroad, if we can call it that, in our history. With a desperate need for economic recovery, we have social change, we have, we're looking at the values of sustainability, diversity, equity, well-being. All of these topics have come to the surface, right? Maybe we ignored them, maybe we weren't interested in them before, we weren't aware, but suddenly it's all around us. And I can't help by having a sense of hope. And I think that everybody in the industry believes that we're going to come out of this better. And so I would wonder if this is truly an opportunity in a lifetime for that quantum leap in sustainability. Is that even possible? And I hate to be bleak because I tend to be addicted to positivity, but I have to wonder, are humans always going to struggle to give a little bit more and let go and be a little bit less greedy? Or is this the moment?
I believe it's a moment of opportunity, and it's a moment of necessity. The reality is that, as we have heard so often, we live on a finite planet. This is our home. And in order for us to prosper in the future, in order for the travel industry to have a brighter future, sustainability, from my perspective, isn't a matter of choice. It's a matter of necessity. It's a matter of survival, truly. Now, you asked the question of, will people always perhaps be self-centered, or so on and so forth? And I would say that Sure, I'm sure some people will be. But I do believe that by and large, and certainly I would think all of our travels have taught us this, that people around the world are fundamentally good and they want to do good. And given the opportunity to do something good over bad, most will choose good. And I think we need to reconnect with our common humanity, understand that the diversity of our cultures and our different ways of life are absolutely what create the rich fabric that makes travel, for example, so enjoyable and so interesting. And in the same context with nature, the beauty of biodiversity, of our oceans, our mountains, our deserts, our jungles are what inspires us. So you said a moment ago, do I think there's an opportunity for a quantum leap forward? And I would say yes, but I would qualify that because if we speak in the context of the travel industry, I would say the travel industry needs to grasp and understand a very fundamental, important thing. And that thing is this. What does the travel industry actually sell? It sells nature and culture. So even if one looks at this from the point of view of a business perspective, and you think of it in that way, then you need to think, and I wouldn't personally ascribe to this, but if you're looking at it through straight economic and business terms, the products that the travel industry sells is cultural heritage and nature. Think about it yourself, Tina. You're in the wonderful country of Brazil. I have never seen a brochure for a beautiful resort in a tropical forest where somebody comes back and says, I just had the most amazing vacation in the Brazilian Amazon. I had a wonderful outdoor massage in a smoldering, clear-cut rainforest devoid of life where there were no birds singing. I'm going back next year. In the same way, I've never met anybody say, I just had this fantastic vacation on a private island, and there I was snorkeling among dead coral reefs and no fish. And then I got out of the water and enjoyed myself on a beach covered in plastic trash. No. So my point is, for that quantum leap forward, the travel industry needs to understand that if it sells nature and culture, which it does, whether it's the Eiffel Tower in Paris, whether it's Angkor Wat in Cambodia, or whether it's the Serengeti in Africa, it has a responsibility to protect those very things that are the foundation of how the travel industry makes money.
Wow. Wow. Powerful words, indeed. And I think what you pinpointed is so important. What do we sell in the travel industry? My God, that is such a simple concept. And it's so, so powerful. Of course, it's nature and culture, of course. Jake, how can we reimagine travel to make it more responsible? And I think here the key words when I ask this question is A, reimagine. So letting go of all of our pre-established rules and stuff. And the second thing that I'd like to consider is in a practical and realistic manner, right? So if we were to reimagine something that can be applicable, what does that look like? Because again, we go back to that point that travel is a powerful force for good. And yet, we all have to be involved. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, happy to. I think that change is in the air right now. That's for sure. And now is as good as time as any in our history, certainly in my lifetime, to revisit, and to look at these questions more deeply. We've seen travel become very digitalized and commoditized and almost sanitized, and with that, we've lost a lot of the soul and power of travel, in my mind. And so, what we have now seems to be, and you've mentioned it, greed, or ego driven, which doesn't really support the goals, that we have as an industry, and what Costas mentioned in terms of nature and culture. I would say that, as we evolve, we look at it being like connection and meaning and transformation. as being the core values that come with travel, both from the traveler perspective and the host perspective. And we start looking at sustainability again, as like, it should be the status quo, right? And in a lot of ways, we look at it maybe being regenerative and looking at it as a living system. We've all heard the idea of from our grandfather, or at least I did. When we borrow something, we should return it better than how we received it, right? Like that was sort of the rule of that exchange. You needed to give it back in a better condition, and I think that holds up here. As we look at regenerative practices and going beyond net zero and look at a net positive impact. And then I think you also bring into the transformative aspect of it, and start engaging, both the opportunity to go within and, the inner journey and that outer journey and that balance. And I think that starts to build toward the connection and the meaning. What we know is that change happens and comes from within, individually and collectively. So if we're able to turn travel into this opportunity to start integrating some of that inner journey, I think that's where we're going to start to see some of the change. We've seen this idea of fear mongering, preaching around sustainability that hasn't been as effective as I think that we'd want it to be. And we talk about the Transformational Travel Council of that quote, you can take a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. Right. And so that goes back to a traveler. Right. If you want them to care, you need to build that connection, so there's connection, meaning, emotion, and then there's love and appreciation. And then the result is behavior change. Right. And
Sure.
so that's where I see that shift really happening, is how can we get people to fall in love with each other, with others, with self, with nature, because that's the motivator. In my mind, that's what ultimately shifts our behaviors and starts to have an impact on society.
I like the word authenticity, and I would throw that into the mix as well. As travelers, we all have a very sharp sense, a very sharp eye for what is authentic, what is truly of the place or of the nature that we're experiencing, the essence of an experience. Is it fabricated? Is there something formulaic about it? Whether it's product or service or anything, we react, I think, more in a more rich way to experiences that we feel are not somehow created just for us, but are more natural, more authentic.
Yeah.
So
No,
just
Totally
adding a layer on what everything Jake said, which I agree with totally. I would add another thought, just coming back on what Costas said. I mean, there's this innate sort of tension between what's good for us as individuals, what I want when I go on a vacation. And I think a lot of travel advisors that might be listening understand this, because when they talk to their customers about sustainability, if they even say the word, which I think many of them don't, sort of the curtain comes down and everybody starts to fall asleep, and which is unfortunate, because for me, the key, and why, as Jake says, it should be everywhere. There shouldn't be a word in our vernacular that says be this rather than that. It should be everything. And the solution, to my mind, is, and a lot of the things that I've tried to do in my business, is it's something that goes on in the background. You have to walk the walk and not necessarily talk the talk. People will know. We're smart. Everybody's smart. We understand. We get it. But if you try to sell it and say, we do this, which is better than what somebody else does, it doesn't come across as authentic.
Yeah, you might come across
So-
as the marketing side of it rather than
And
the
what we
the
all
honest side
need
of it.
as individuals may not be what the collective needs. The collective needs to get rid of single-use plastic. But as an individual, darn, I'm thirsty. I gotta have a bottle of water. And there's
coconut.
nothing else, so give
A
me the bottle
coconut.
of water. And whether it comes to luxury conditions in your room or, whatever, I want to have a luxury experience. Well, that uses more energy. That uses more
Sure.
resources.
Sure,
It uses
sure,
more
sure.
resources in construction and insulation and energy and what have you.
For sure.
Of
I
course,
think, yeah,
so-
no, I think you bring out a very good point. And I think one of the things that Jake touched upon is also the realization that we're all part of the solution. It's not about, what hotels are doing and, what cruise lines are doing. And of course, everybody has a role, but I think, Jake touched upon also the role of the traveler, the role of the travel advisor, the role of the media.
Right.
I mean, it's everybody has a role in this. And I think that, it's what's very much come out of this, at least from my conversations in the TL Talks. We just had an amazing virtual travel fest. It was called RepFest that ended yesterday. But what came out of it is very much so the questioning of, what is my role in this? What is what I do affecting the future of travel? Because very correctly, as Costa said, it is what we sell. So if you have a beautiful hotel, or if you are the owner, or if you are the travel advisor and you focus in the Caribbean, or, that's what your clients enjoy, then how do we make sure, how much are we investing into preserving it, right? Because we can suck it all out of it, but then it's going to have a very short lifespan. So we all need it to be there and be beautiful. Otherwise, we've got nothing to sell. And I think that's
true.
Martina, is kind of like the business case. It's trying to get the business person or the CEO to understand that they're actually engaging in the sale of cultural heritage and nature and have a responsibility, therefore, to protect those things. But on another level, and the individual level, and what Richard was just talking about, what Jake touched upon, what you've mentioned right now, is we each have a responsibility, and what we need to begin to look at and understand are, for me, two kind of key things. One is, we have created in our society this notion that somehow ourselves as humans are separate from our environment, that nature is over there and we're over here. And we don't realize that plastic in the ocean and the air that we breathe, for example, is coming from nature. We are nature. It is us. It is not over there. It is within us, both spiritually and physically. We are part of this vast global ecosystem known as our planet. So in understanding that, then we begin to understand that even from an individual perspective, we have a responsibility and commitment to ourselves, our children, and to others by protecting. That's, this kind of one point of it, this individual side of it. The other thing that I think is important for us to begin to understand in the travel arena, you were just saying, travel advisors and others, are that each of our travel choices makes a huge difference. And when we choose to travel what I call the right way or the sustainable way, then we are creating a brighter future for people, for planet, and for wildlife, and for nature in that sense. And I guess my last point on this note is we need a paradigm shift. Richard Bailey just said a moment ago that it can cost more. And the reality is this: we have created an economic system in the travel industry and at large that basically privatizes profits and then socializes environmental damage. And we need to rethink profit and loss statements with biodiversity and nature in mind, with human livelihood impacts, and with cultural heritage. That's the quantum leap I believe you were referring to earlier. And it's certainly one that I believe is within our grasp and we need to act on.
I think you nailed it. And I think it moves in perfectly to my next question to Richard, because Richard, you've created a masterpiece with the Brando. You know, it is a benchmark, it's sustainable, it's everything everybody's looking for, because you have created a property that is sustainable and almost invisibly. You know, it's not like it's not affecting, let's say, the experience that the travelers are ultimately looking for. However, you have a very unique position, because with Beachcombers, you're also very involved, and you have larger brands managing other properties. So, it's very interesting, because you have a very unique position. You're kind of in the middle, or you have your one hand in each pie. One of them is dealing with that manicured boutique, ultra, exclusive experience. And the other one, you're dealing with properties that are bigger, right? And I like to imagine this, and I felt this a little bit during the pandemic, because your portfolio is like that big, right? It's tiny. So what does that give me? It gives me agility, flexibility. And if you imagine the ocean, which is where usually I live when I close my eyes, I'm on a jet ski, I'm on a little rowboat, I'm on something very, very agile, very easy to maneuver, right? Which is often the case with independent hotels, such as the Brando. When you're looking at the large corporations, they're like the tankers, those, so even if they want to stop, it's gonna take them a while, because they're on this momentum. And if they want to turn, everything is slow, right? Unfortunately, our industry is made up of a lot of tankers, a lot of them. And so I would love to hear from you, because you have, you're kind of dealing with both. How do we get these tankers, and it doesn't matter what their name is, but we can call them tankers, to move, because they are a big chunk of our industry. Do you agree?
I agree. It's a very good point. It's much easier to differentiate yourself with a single property. The intrinsic characteristic of a global brand, a global hospitality brand, say, you mentioned Four Seasons or Ritz-Carlton or Intercontinental, or all fantastically supremely well managed, very professional brands. But the intrinsic characteristic of brands is that everything is the same. One brand on a property, it can't be better than another property with the same brand. That's the whole point. People are attracted to the brand. They have expectations for that brand. And that makes it very difficult for a brand, a global hospitality brand, to put its stake in the ground on a specific issue. Some do. There are exceptions, but by and large, the stake in the ground is to say, we are at this price point, we are at this level of, say, luxury and service, and others are at this point, and others are a somewhat lower point. That's the main point of differentiation, is where you are on the price scale in terms of expectations of luxury and service. So, for example, on one of our properties here in French Polynesia, we pioneered, or the world pioneer, for a cooling system using deep ocean water.
Sure, it's amazing.
This is a process that deserves to be widely publicized. But as a property owner, I'm not in charge of PR or marketing. I rely on my brand to do that. Well, how does one brand talk about something that is never done at any other of their branded properties throughout the world? It's not possible. What one property does is anathema to the brand unless it's done everywhere. And so,
well,
in the case of sustainability, a corporate brand, a large global brand, has to take it on, and it starts in the boardroom. it starts with somebody at the top having passion and energy and saying, we are going to do this. And many of them are. It just takes to turn from, north to east. Say it takes, as you say, it takes time and energy and passion to change that cardinal direction for a very large vessel.
Sure, and I can't.
But it's happening. It's happening because consumers are expecting it.
Yeah,
the travel
I just can't.
Is expecting it.
Can't worry if it's fast enough, and I think that's the question. How do we get these large entities to be able to maneuver in a be it modern? Let the quickest lead the way. If you have a brand if you have one of your children, if it's a family, and you have one of your children that's a quicker learner, let them fly. Don't hold them back because the other kids are still stuck in the first exam. Let them fly. So it is a challenge.
The right question to ask about this is, who is the agent of change? Who are the true agents of change? If we sat around waiting for global brands to change our travel behavior, we might wait a long time. I think today, in terms of sustainability, the most important agent of change is the travel advisor. They are the ones that, with their customers, they're interacting with their customers, and they're saying, where are you going this year? What do you want to do? And that's the moment that they can say, well, have you thought about traveling with purpose? Have you thought about a transformational experience? Have you thought about an experience where you can encounter nature and have an inner voyage and take stock of yourself and take your family, and don't think about just doing things, think about absorbing things. And so I can build whatever resort I want. People aren't going to come unless a travel advisor somewhere says, this is what they're doing, and it's pretty cool, and you might like it. So
that's an important message. The power of a travel advisor and their role as leaders and influencers is very key. And Jake, I think Richard is speaking to your heart there when he talking about transformational travel and promoting it and selling it. I don't know if you guys planned this, but it's pretty well tied up here. It's a nice little combo of the because it's true.
We're vibing across the ocean. We're vibing.
I think, there's been a few things that are going on. You started out by asking us what, may have changed through the pandemic. And I think there is a reorientation of values that are happening among people as people redefine for themselves, what does luxury mean to them? Luxury increasingly meaning to beautiful nature, time with loved ones, health, well-being. So I think this is reorienting the traveler. The other thing I would say is, I absolutely agree with Richard there. The travel advisor has an immensely important role to play in this, because one of the key, there are really 4 key pillars under the rubric of what we are talking about in a transformational and sustainable travel future. And one is what we hear frequently when we talk about the term sustainability, the reduce, reuse, recycle aspect of things, our green footprint. The other pillar is the support for the protection of cultural and natural heritage. The third pillar is the support and tangible benefits to the social and economic well-being of local people. And the fourth is educating the traveler. And that is in the realm of travel advisors, but it's also a responsibility in the realm of travel media, and it's a responsibility in terms of the actual travel provider, meaning the resort, the tour operator. And as you said, we are all in this together. One of the things that I will tell you on one of these pillars is probably the most important lesson of the last 40 years when it comes to the idea of how do we save nature? How do we protect wildlife that are on an extinction threshold? Well, the way we do that is ensuring that the people who live closest to what we believe should be protected are partners and allies in this effort when it comes to the travel industry. And they will become partners and allies when they have a seat at the table, when their voice is heard. So the idea of empowering local communities is fundamental, in my view, to the future of travel, for the reason I said earlier. Because when people travel, I know when people go to the Brando Resort, it is literally breathtaking. Now, Richard Bailey, I'd love to think that the only reason they're going there is because you have some really great food and you have a fantastic traditional Polynesian spa. But something tells me that the reason they're going there is to enjoy those things in one of the most spectacular seascapes and marine environments on Earth. In the same way, nobody goes to the Serengeti because they want to sip a gin and tonic at sundown. They can have their gin and tonic at home. But if they can look at the last great land migration on Earth, then that gin and tonic and that room with the view is a backstop to that experience. And the best part of all of this is when we protect these things, we are also creating a healthier and brighter future for our children, our great-grandchildren, and future generations of travelers to enjoy these same experiences. That's what makes transformational travel so important. That's what makes sustainable tourism so game-changing, because we have at our fingertips now a moment to literally transform global travel.
Jake, you're too quiet. I need you to pitch in here, or cheer, or give us a cheerleading woohoo!
Woohoo! Absolutely. He's dropping some wisdom bombs, both of them.
I think
very true.
I think what Costas just said can be summarized by saying sustainable travel is a virtuous cycle, whereas unsustainable travel is a vicious cycle. More travel weighs on the environment, degrades it, it becomes less attractive to the traveler, and continues in a vicious cycle, whereas the opposite is sort of a symbiosis, and which is the effect that we seek in all of our properties, where the traveler, as Jake very aptly put it, we leave it better than the way we found it. If we leave a place better than the way we found it, then we begin to build a virtuous travel cycle where travel is absolutely a force for good.
Richard, you know, I know something's good, something's working on these TL talks if Costas is taking notes. I mean, wow.
I just wrote down, you saw me write that down. Sustainable travel is a virtuous cycle and unsustainable travel is a vicious cycle.
You can quote me
Richard
on that,
Bailey.
Yeah,
that's
you
what
have
he's
to
going
say,
out.
quoted on the TL talks. This is like
you got to quote Jake on leaving it better than the way you found it.
Yeah, the wisdom of his grandfather.
Well, one thing I will just throw in here, and Jake just said it in passing. He mentioned Joseph Campbell, who has been an incredible inspiration in my life. And I think that the wisdom of that inner journey, the things that Joseph Campbell talked about, that Jake said he's inspired by, are the very things that have also inspired me. And I didn't want to let this finish without commenting on that.
We can get into that later for hours.
We can stay here for hours. That's the bottom line. Jake, you talked about, when I was reading about your journey to discovering your calling, as you call this, right? This is your calling. This is what you're meant to do. You mentioned that you now have way more perspective and find yourself more comfortable with being uncomfortable, simultaneously being intentionally and surrendering at the same time. That's a complex situation going on. Can you define that a little bit? Share with us how is that, and is that something that we all need to be comfortable with or consider?
Yeah, that's a good one that you dug out there. Yeah, I would say that I am following my calling, if you will. And that specifically, that blend of intention and surrendering. I think that has a lot to do with mindset. And so, when we talk about some of the change that we want to see and this opportunity for us in the travel industry, we can be change makers. We can, guide and empower travelers in their journey in building these connections by helping them become more aware. As Costa said, they're more aware of the interconnectivity of it all. We're making progress. And so when we talk about that mindset, it's about looking at travel as a practice, similar to a meditation practice or a yoga practice. It's something that you work on. It's a soulful craft. And travel professionals, this is what we do. We are the experts. We can help others develop that soulful craft. And then, Dick mentioned a little bit about being, right? Like you have to really focus on being rather than doing, and traveling with heart. And, it's a tool that we have in some of our coursework in our book is it's an acronym for be humble, be engaged, be awake, be resilient, right? And be thoughtful, and so, with that allows us to get into the mindset that you're opening up for the potential for transformation to occur. And there are conditions, then there are patterns, and, travel professionals, whether you're a destination or a lodge, or, you can create the conditions and that are necessary or create that vessel for change to occur. And that really opens up to what I think I mentioned you mentioned at the beginning, being uncomfortable. That is where the opportunity exists, right?
So and surrendering is tough.
Surrendering to it. Yeah.
Tough,
So
man.
it's that flow state, right? It's being in flow. Like you set your intentions, you almost close your eyes and you let go. And then, that's where the magic and the power of travel really starts to unfold. And then that's what, that's where you can start to shift behaviors because you're inspired,
sure.
When you get home, and that's where the transformation occurs.
For sure. I want to just touch upon a quick thing before we close out, because I think it's important. Costas, you were one of the earlier ecotourism pioneers in the 70s and 80s, and you helped officially define ecotourism for the first time, right? So you have that baggage, no doubt. And you recently formed let's call it a partnership with Preferred Hotels, which I know that it's still under development, that there's going to be more news coming out. But my question is to you, what led you to expand your work into a more mainstream global travel and tourism industry? And I think we talk a little bit, it's almost like bridging back to what we talked about with Richard about the cargo ship. My feeling is you're bridging the cargo ship. Is that more or less, is there a touch of that?
So in the 80s, 70s and 80s into the 90s, I was heavily focused on the fact that nature travel was growing at what I would call an alarming rate. In other words, we were seeing travelers head into the last true unspoiled wildernesses on our planet, what we call biodiversity hotspots. And so by 1990, there was concern already beginning about the Galapagos. This is what gave birth to the idea of ecotourism, responsible travel to natural areas that protects nature and sustains the well-being of local people. That was 1991. I spent the 90s basically going around the world and, for lack of a better word, preaching the gospel of ecotourism everywhere. And we opened up ecotourism societies and chapters all over the world. And in 2002, when the United Nations declared the International Year of Ecotourism and held the world's first global ecotourism summit in the city of Quebec, after giving a talk there, I woke up at night and what was that about? The panic was that even if ecotourism in its philosophy was 100% successful, we might change 20% of the global travel industry. And then I asked myself a question. Wait a minute. Why should a jungle camp in Costa Rica or an African safari camp be the only ones thinking about responsible travel that protects nature and improve people's lives? What about the mainstream industry? And something dramatic for me happened at that point. I had been at that stage 20 years into this movement of responsible travel. I resigned my positions from most of the boards that I was on that were promoting ecotourism. I stopped going to ecotourism conferences because it occurred to me that unless we began speaking to audiences for whom the very idea of ecotourism could even be hostile, we weren't going to win. So to your point, we needed to go bigger and bolder, and we needed to reach out into forums, cruise ships, airlines, major city hotels, and begin talking about these issues and how they could be part of it. That gave birth in 2002 to the idea of sustainable tourism, that we take the ideas of ecotourism and now reapply them to the entire global industry. And I began working with organizations like World Travel and Tourism Council. I began showing up. I spent 9 years at Virtuoso teaching travel advisors about these concepts. And you just mentioned a partnership with Preferred Hotel and Hospitality Group. So my goal has continued to be to plant the seeds to nourish and grow this transformational concepts of travel that the three of us and you have been talking about in every forum of the travel industry. And so that means we have to go in and work with all the players. And that's been a key part of what I've been doing now. And I'm excited to say that in the context of the work and the partnership with Preferred, yes, we're going to move this forward. It's another opportunity to work with an organization that doesn't have a lot of experience in this area, but is large, global, and get them to become catalysts for the vision of travel we all believe in right here, a vision that will protect travel for the future and make the world a better place.
Beautifully put. And one of the things that very nice. So I just wanted to touch on one thing, because when I first started this conversation with Richard, my concern was, I said, Richard, if we get more members of our tribe to talk about this, I don't know if we'll have an impact, because we're believers, like we're in this thing, we have to get people from secretly plant in people that are from outside so that it can grow. And one of the other things that I think, taking that into account, is one of my favorite silver linings of this COVID is the possibility of collaboration, right? Again, I just collaborated with 4 amazing rep companies, and we had a blast, and we raised over $10,000 to a fantastic charity. And all of this beautiful thing came about from collaboration. So I touched upon this topic with Jake, and Jake, I'd love you to touch upon it. What's being born or growing now with Costas and Preferred, and looking at the Transformational Travel Council, how do you look at this as a competitor, as a partner, as how does this work environmentally?
I would say that if we continue to take a look at this through the lens of competition, and I think that's been a horrible habit of the industry and lots of others for a very, very long time, then we're not going to see the progress that we need. And so, from our perspective at the TTC, we want to be cooperative. We want to work together. These are problems we need to solve together. And so, whether you're big or small, or, whether you're, a cruise line or a small wellness retreat, there are certain mindsets and goals and visions here that we need to be working together. And that's going to require us to really come together and understand that we do have, shared values, and help travelers really start to understand that their value proposition needs to shift, that they should be supporting these things. It shouldn't be about them. It should be about us. And I think our industry is in a unique position to really demonstrate what true cooperation looks like. Co-opetition, if you will.
I like that.
I'm just going to jump in and make one comment with this, and then hopefully we'll have the wisdom of Richard Bailey, who truly is a pioneer in this space of sustainability. But this idea of competition, I was talking recently with somebody I knew back in the early 1990s who was active in this space. And they said to me, they have a small organization dedicated to these ideas, like Jake has just talked about. And they said to me, oh, goodness, it's so difficult now. You know, Costas, every country now has some organization talking about sustainability, talking about responsible travel. It's impossible now. The competition is so fierce. And I almost fell off my chair. And I said to this person, I said, that's not the problem. That's the solution. That in the early 90s and 80s, we dreamed of a day that there would be organizations around the world promoting these values. Tina, we are in an all hands on deck moment for our planet, from climate change to biodiversity loss to protecting cultural heritage and also alleviating poverty. We need every single person, every single organization to help us drive this forward. This is the way we succeed.
Absolutely.
True. Absolutely. And I think what we all agree here is if competition could kind of, the energy of competition could stay behind, and we could look at the power of unity and collaboration. And when it comes to pretty much anything, but when it comes to sustainability, and it's, as you said, the universe and the well-being of the planet and us is one. So we're just taking care of ourselves. If you want to look at it egocentrically, you know, that's fine too, as long as we're taking care of the planet as we do that. And we have a lot of questions. We have a very, very active audience today. Unfortunately, we don't have time to ask all the questions. We have Happy Dumas with a bunch of questions. I will share your questions that have been coming in with the panelists, and we'll find a way to get the answers, because there are lots of questions, which is a good thing. But I like to wrap this up with the way that I always wrap it up, is if our audience were to forget everything that we just said, and we had such a blast, you know, here, we could wish we could stay hours, but what would be your one message that you want to leave them with? And Jake, I'll start with you.
One message to leave them with. It goes back to and this has been fantastic. I'm definitely feeling the energy here. I would go back to what was said about the interconnectivity, you know, the consciousness aspect, you know, and travel is it takes us out of our comfort zone immediately, right? We go from beta to alpha waves in our brain. We can start blazing new trails neurologically, and that creates opportunities for change. So as agents of change within this industry, you know, and you know, ultimately being a gatekeeper to travel experiences that do change you, it's our responsibility to guide travelers in understanding that it isn't about entertainment. It's about fulfillment and growth, and not just your own fulfillment and growth, but others, right? And the destinations and the hosts and everyone that we encounter along the way. So that would be my takeaway.
Very much so. And it's about planting those seeds. You know, we're at the end of the week. People are going to be, you know, they're going to keep thinking about these things. And I think it's such important lessons. Richard, tell us your takeaway.
Right. I would say, gosh, the challenges facing our world are just enormous. It makes us dizzy to think about it. But there's something that each of us can do. And I would say, you know, lean forward and take a stand. Take a stand on something. There's something that we can all do. There's not going to be one thing that changes the world for the better. We're going to see these little clusters of virtuous cycles. It's going to be one river, one mountain, one village somewhere, one atoll at a time, that the world improves. And so we all, in our neighborhoods, in our communities, wherever we are, there's something we can do. So I would say, take a stand, do something today, Do something today. There's something we can all do, and we all know what it is. We just do it.
Yeah. No, I think Jake mentioned it a little earlier also. It's not about saying, it's about doing, and we can all do something. At a small thing at home, committing to reducing plastic, buy less bottles. I don't know. There's infinite little steps. I think we had Neil Jacobs in one of our original beginnings, right at the beginning of our TL talks. And he said something that stuck with me. He said, sustainability is not a religion. It's not all or nothing. You can do little things, you can adapt to it slowly. You can incorporate it. You don't have to. And that's an interesting way to look at it. Costas, I'll let you take it home. No pressure.
I think for everybody who's a travel advisor out there, if there's one thing to keep in mind, think of sustainable travel like this. Sustainable travel is not about giving something up. It's about gaining something more. Okay. And what could be better, literally, than that proverbial room with a view as you sit there with your special partner, your friend, your spouse, your family. Maybe you're sipping a bottle of Zinfandel and you're looking out over a spectacular scenery of nature, and you're saying to yourself, my goodness, this was one of the best vacations I ever had. And do you mean to tell me that I'm also helping to protect this beautiful landscape, that I'm helping to safeguard, as the Brando's doing, Tahiti's largest atoll, and restore it and regenerate it back to nature? So that's a key takeaway. And my last point is this one. 50 years from now, 100 years from now, travelers going to look back and they're going to say, my goodness, can you imagine how amazing it was to travel back in 2021? Can you imagine what those earlier travelers had in 2022? My point is to say this. Travel will continue to change lives in great, and when we travel sustainably, we are creating that future for future generations to look back with appreciation so that they can enjoy the very things that we enjoy today. It's not too late to travel now, and it won't be 100 years from now.
That is very, very wise and very true. And I hope that if everybody can remember 5% of the content of this incredible conversation, then tomorrow is guaranteed to be better. So, gentlemen, so much wisdom, so much passion, so much energy. I can't thank you enough for accepting our invitation. I hope we're going to stay connected. I hope that, we can keep this message going. I also wanted to let people know, our TL talks are going to continue. Our next one is on November 13th. It's a topic that's also very dear to me. It's women in leadership, still a road less traveled. And so please join us for a very interesting conversation with three very powerful women. Thank you. And again, thank you so much. Richard, Jake, Costas, it's been a tremendous pleasure, and I've learned so much. So thank you to everybody that listened in. If you're watching live or on demand, you can watch it again and again, because I will be pressing play again and again onto this, because there's too much content. So gentlemen, thank you.
It's a privilege. Thank you very much.
Bye. Thank you very much.
Have a great weekend.
Bye.
Thank you.
Our hardest times often lead to our greatest moments, remembering that adversity brings people together.
While no one chooses to go through this kind of stress and anxiety, there will be things that come out of it and opportunities that we can't see today.
That's a powerful motivator, isn't it? To no longer take life for granted.
I define wealth by the lives that I touch. I feel like really one of the wealthiest people in our industry.
Travel is a force for good. We believe it's a connector. We believe it's vital to democracy.
That kind of stress and conflict does bring people together. A common danger unites even the bitterest of enemies.
Listen more carefully and talk less. I often fail, but when I do it, I love the results I experience.
Some people say it feels like the world has frozen, has stopped. Somehow, for some of us, it feels like it's spinning quicker than ever before.